If you want to find out how to tie some effective knots with monofilament line for survival fishing, stay tuned. All the gear and no idea? This is no more apparent than using fishing line. There are many different types of cordage. Many knots are cordage specific. What will work with monofilament line may not work with hawser laid cable. As a general rule, it's a good idea to practice knots with thicker cord before moving small, difficult to manipulate monofilament line. The monofilament line can also be used for a number of bushcraft tasks, but only if you know the knots that are going to actually hold. The first thing I did was to go on the internet and find out what type of knots I would need for fishing. Basically, these were joining line and attaching things like hooks and swivels. There was a number of knots. I looked at the diagram and thought they would be simple to do, so I started on the first one, the blood knot, for joining two lines of equal thickness. At first I did it with paracord, and this was fairly easy. However, once I started with the monofilament, things got much more difficult. Almost impossible because of lack of experience and the fact that monofilament is plastic and it's been stored on a reel prior to selling. The next stage was to go back online and watch videos of people actually demonstrating how to do the knot. This proved most useful as I could stop the video, copy the actions, restart the video. This proved to be a lot easier than trying to follow a diagram. Now back to the drawing board and find what looks to be the easiest knot to tie. Again, practice it with big paracord. This knot's going to be used for attaching a line to a hook. So put an eye in a piece of wood to simulate the hook and practice with string before practicing with the monofilament. At the very least, one will understand the process of tying the knot from beginning to end. One advantage of using the fixed eye is it prevents you getting stabbed by the barbed end of the hook while you're still inexperienced and learning how to actually tie the knots. Having mastered the clinch or half-blood knot, I moved on to similar knots called the Snell and the Uni knot. They were all, in my eyes, variations on the theme. Later on in the field, I would find out when you used them and why. The various knots looked easy enough to do on the diagrams. With a little bit of dexterity, they were easy enough to do with the paracord and the string. However, the monofilament line was another matter. I was told by a fishing shop proprietor that things would be easier if I used a better quality monofilament line or even the much more expensive braided line. Having decided to exclusively use the half-blood knot for attaching a line to a hook, I thought I would attempt to try attaching a line to a leader. At this stage I had a reality check. The knots I needed would be few. They would only be needed for attaching a line to an object, a hook or a swivel, a line to a rod or stake, and a line to a loop. The big difference between what I'd been doing and would actually do in the field was the fact that I would be using a stick as a rod, not a rod with a reel. My first decision was to master the half-blood knot, then to find a knot that would make a loop easily. I tried the overhand knot, but this slipped. I tried the overhand knot with 2 or 3 extra wrappings and then going through the loop, and it worked and held. So this could be used for joining lines of different thickness. The last knot that I needed to master was a knot that would hold the monofilament line to a stake or to a rod. I tried the clove hitch, but it slipped. So thinking back, I decided to use the half-blood knot. I did it on 2 different items and pulled like mad. They held. The line snapped, not the knot. So in reality, I only need to know how to tie a half-blood knot and a multiple loop overhand knot. This would be sufficient for me for survival fishing with the kit that I had available. Well, this might be a good place to practice your fishing, but only if A, it's allowed, B, you've got a license, or C, you're a member of the club that owns the area. If not, it's poaching, and that is really severely punished in UK. So be careful where you practice your emergency survival fishing. So before you go out there to get training, stay indoors, get knotting. You know it makes sense, it'll serve you well.